Hey guys, welcome to the channel, Titanreaper here. Today we'll be reviewing Guardians of the Galaxy. Surprising, yet a bit disappointing. Okay, so before I get into the review, warning, there are spoilers ahead. You've been warned. Ha ha ha! Okay, so let's get into the review, shall we? First of all, I'm going to start off with the story. The story is very well written. It's a little short for my liking, but it's a good story. It sees Peter and the gang going into a restricted area, finding the Soul Stone, accidentally releasing something from it, and then being caught by Nova Corps while trying to get out. And then events kind of unfold from there until it culminates in them saving the galaxy, as usual. They're always responsible in some way or another for how things turn out. At least, that's how I feel. The game kind of plays like a digital novel, where your choices in the game don't really affect the outcome, but they do affect the dialogue that will play out in that instance. So as an example, without ruining the game, if Peter spoke to Gamora and Rocket chimed in and options popped up, you could either side with Rocket or side with Gamora or say nothing. See how it plays out from there. Overall, the story's really good. I enjoyed it. I just wish it was a bit longer. Okay, let's talk about the controls, because honestly, and I'm not going to sugarcoat this, the controls are dog shit, especially on the mouse and keyboard. So what ends up happening is, when you're playing on mouse and keyboard, the controls are often sluggish, and sometimes they'll become unresponsive. So when you're trying to jump over a gap, you would jump halfway over, you'd jump again to activate your rocket boots so that you get over to the other side. But because of the issues on mouse and keyboard, when you jump, you'd have to spam about halfway, and sometimes because it doesn't register, you'd fall lower than you wanted to and end up grabbing the edge and then having to spam it again just to try and keep up. Sometimes it would become unresponsive to the point where it would activate too late and you'd fall much further than you could to recover, and then you'd end up falling down anyway. The Milano's controls, fucking terrible. I'm sorry, I can't even sugarcoat that. They are fucking terrible.
That would be counting eggs.
At the point where you crash land the Milano on the frozen planet, I had to switch over to the controller because the understeer was so bad on the mouse, I couldn't avoid the mountains. Kept crashing. Switch over to the controller, veer to the right, miss the mountains. So much fucking easier. So, I mean, they've got to fix the problem with the keyboard and the mouse. And it's not the mouse's sensitivity, because I increased that. I looked at the settings. I increased all the settings that needed to be increased to have a better experience. But when you're sitting with controls that become unresponsive, it makes the game a lot more frustrating, and you die in places where you shouldn't be dying. Oh look, I'm sliding down the slide, I've got to jump now. But because the thing doesn't respond in time, instead of jumping, it just kind of let me go forward off the ramp. And by the time I started jumping, I couldn't quite make it to the other side, and there I go. I'm dead. And it gets frustrating. It's the same when you're firing Peter's gun. There's a little area on the bar when it's cooling down, where if you press your trigger in the green area, it will reset your cooldown completely. And you'll be able to keep firing as if there was no cooldown. But because it doesn't respond all the time, sometimes you'll try and spam it and it just doesn't respond and goes through the full cooldown. It is so annoying. It really is. And this brings us into the gameplay. And you're gonna hear the arguments from the controls in here as well, because the one does affect the other. Gameplay was rough. It really was. It wouldn't have been like this if the controls had been better. The controls being unresponsive resulted in spamming them, which wouldn't always work. Sometimes you would die in places where you shouldn't be dying. There are instances where you would hit an invisible wall and fall down anyway because you hit a wall that wasn't supposed to be there in the first place. Your character wouldn't always grab the edges. The ledge where Gamora jumps up and digs her sword into the wall so that you can get up there and she can throw you up to the platform above her. Sometimes you get stuck on the wall when you're jumping up to try and get to her. Photo mode, while it's a good idea, I love the concept of it. It just does not work in the game right now. It's sluggish. It uses way too many resources, and once you're done using it, everything in the game moves sluggishly. The NPCs stagger around. They don't move fluidly like they used to, and it gets annoying. You'd also get stuck on some of the scenery, like the pebbles or the stones lying around. That something you can just walk over, or should be able to walk over, you get stuck on as if it was a boulder in front of you. The controls would also make you miss the skip cooldown setting on your weapon. You know, that green area where you can press the trigger to bypass the cooldown setting. And when using other Guardian's abilities, sometimes when you open up the window to choose which Guardian you want to have their abilities be used, it would just choose for you. And you'd have to go back in to see if you could then change the Guardian, and that wouldn't always work. So you were kind of forced into using specific Guardians when you didn't want to use them. The graphics are very well done. I'm really impressed with the graphics. They've done a really good job with the scenery, with the textures, with the costumes, everything. The textures are well done and also add to the immersion of the game. The scenery is fantastic. It makes everything look so much larger than what you're able to play in. The shadows look good. The colors and the shading are top notch. Materials look convincing. The Milano has a unique design that doesn't stray away from, or doesn't stray too far from the original.
I'm not seeing a monster.
So it's got that whole Milano vibe while having a unique design to it. The costumes are well designed, and the characters' movements, they feel more natural. They don't feel kind of robotic like some games have it. They don't have that restricted movement that you find a lot of characters have in some of the games. The sounds in the game, also super well done. The ambient sounds add to the immersion of the location you're currently in. The terrain breaking up, the sounds of the rocks falling, it all sounds so realistic. When items break or fall in the game, they actually sound like the item that is breaking and falling, which gives it more of that realistic feel to it. So the sounds department, they did a fantastic job there as well. The music in the game, as with Peter Quill's style, it's from the 80s. There is actually a huge selection of songs in there, and I'm quite impressed with that. And when you're in the house, there is a radio as well as on the Milano where you can go and you can change the music as well, so that you can listen to what you want to listen to. The music also kind of immerses you in that whole Guardians of the Galaxy vibe. So they've just done a good job on this as well. The voice acting in the game, fantastic. The actors and the actresses did a stellar job with it. The constant banter and talking back and forth between the characters makes you feel like you're in a living environment with real people surrounding you. The swearing in the game is PG-13. They use words that very closely resemble the others, like flark, making the game appeal to a wider audience.
I am not familiar with these words.
The nuances in the voices when they speak helps convey their anger or sorrow or the fact that they're excited or happy. The actors have just knocked it out the ballpark with this. The levels are designed fairly well, with hidden areas containing items used to upgrade your skills and chests containing costumes for your characters. The level design is also very linear, So you kind of follow a predefined path to get to an area, even though you've got to solve some puzzles. It kind of limits the scope of where you can go in the game. I also feel there's kind of some lost opportunity there where they could have expanded some areas, put in some more items pertaining to character lore so that it gives you more of a background regarding those characters, or have more narrative items for those characters. I also feel like the skill list was a little bit too short. They could have done a lot more with the game. The amount of skills, costumes, and I mean that's basically all you can unlock is skills and costumes. It kind of feels limiting to a degree. Now we get into the fun factor of the game. And while the game is fun to play, the issues in it do kind of take away from that. You could be having so much more fun in this game if these issues are sorted out. You know, the scenery is awe-inspiring. It makes you want to just sit there and look at the scenery all day. It really is beautiful. And the constant banter between the Guardians is good for a chuckle. You know, it puts a grin on your face, which is nice because you'll hear Rocket say something to Groot or to Drax, and you'll be like, yeah, that sounds like Rocket. Is there value for money in the game? Yes and no, but mostly no. Yes, you're getting some value out of it because of the voice acting, which is fantastically done. The graphics are spectacular. The music is awesome. But when you factor in the controls issues, it just doesn't bring the value to where it needs to be. Because your game is constantly marred by issues where you're struggling to do things because the controls don't want to respond. Or the game keeps crashing, or the graphics bug out and you only see a black screen no matter what you do. You know, you're hitting invisible walls, your character's not grabbing the edges. It makes for a bad game experience. So I'd say overall you are not getting the value of the game you paid for, even though the game is visually and audibly stunning. What are my final thoughts on this game? Well, overall the score is 7.4 out of 10. It's not terrible, but it's not as good as it could be. The controls need to be fixed. Character not grabbing onto the edges needs to be fixed. The getting stuck on walls and pebbles need to be fixed. It doesn't feel like the game was playtested enough to catch these issues before it was released. And because of that, these issues got through the cracks. And a game that was created by Eidos Montreal and published by Square Enix to have this many issues in it, it just doesn't make any sense. Squaresoft back then, when Final Fantasy came out, did fantastic games. You know, even after they changed to Square Enix, they made fantastic games. So to have a game in front of me that's got both of their names on it with this many issues in it, to me that's unheard of, and it tarnishes their reputations as well. Once these issues have been fixed, I'll definitely play the game again and just make an update to my review, or I'll just do a second review on the game, but I won't be playing it again until these issues are fixed. And if you've experienced any issues in the game that you've played, then please leave a comment down below, let me know what happened, and I'll reply to every comment I can. If you enjoyed this video, then please leave a like, comment and subscribe. It would really help me out a lot. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.